Mangwanani Malelepo, Vukenjani, Krekwas Dumelang Vanave Africa. Welcome to Friday's Africa Good Morning. The news and current affairs show that remains your portal into Africa's most potent stories. We've got a lot of stories coming from broader Africa, starting in Southern Africa, Zimbabwe planning to give back some farms. However, later in the show, we're going to be having Neil Bradley, an interview that I sat with him in an interview rather a year after his tenure in Namibia began, Neil Bradley being the British High Commissioner to Namibia. So we'll certainly be looking forward to showing you that footage. But as I stated before, prior to that, these are some of the top stories we'll be looking at. Zimbabwe moves to return 67 farms under European investment agreements. African governments warn citizens amid anti-immigrant violence in South Africa. United Nations Rights Chief calls on Tunisia to halt crackdown on civil society and media. And Felix Tshisekedi, the president of Congo, signals possible third term as DR Congo conflict threatens 2028 polls. DSTV 285, GoTV 25, OneUp2.com, Network Media Hub, and ntvafrica.my.na. Those are the platforms you can watch Africa Good Morning. My name is Ashwin Bedi. Top stories shortly.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative Sport Tourism.
Zimbabwe says it will return 67 farms seized from foreign nationals from 4 European countries covered by bilateral investment protection agreements as the country attempts to repair relations with Western governments while pursuing debt relief. The farms belong to nationals from Denmark, Switzerland, Germany, and the Netherlands. Zimbabwe began seizing more than 4,000 white-owned farms in 2000 under former President Robert Mugabe, arguing the program aimed to resettle landless black citizens and correct colonial-era land ownership imbalances. The land seizures disrupted commercial agriculture, contributed to a currency collapse in 2008, and left the country struggling to feed itself. President Emmerson Mnangagwa, who replaced Mugabe in a 2017 coup, has sought to rebuild ties with Western countries that imposed sanctions over the land reform program and wider human rights concerns. Zimbabwe's foreign debt stood at $13.6 billion in September last year, including $7.7 billion in arrears. International lenders have demanded reforms, including resolving land disputes before granting debt relief. Agriculture Minister Anxious Masuka confirmed the government was in the process of returning the farms covered by the agreement. Keeping in mind, as Africa Good Morning had a look at the parliamentary message by Minister Anxious Masuka, he spoke in Shona, and it seems like what he said was that the farms which are being returned were the ones which had been taken from black Africans by mistake. So the message might be lost in translation. We certainly hope to give you a more clarified position by Monday. Now we'll swing over to Zimbabwe's neighbor. Several African countries, including Kenya, Malawi, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe, have warned their citizens in South Africa to remain cautious and stay indoors following attacks targeting foreigners. Ghana has meanwhile approached the African Union seeking intervention as protests against illegal immigration continue across South Africa. The demonstrations have been accompanied by violence against migrants from other sub-Saharan African countries living in Africa's largest economy. Migrant rights organizations say foreigners are being blamed for South Africa's economic challenges, particularly unemployment, which remains above 30% and disproportionately affects black South Africans. Ghana confirmed it facilitated the safe return of one of its citizens after a viral video showed a Ghanaian man being harassed by a crowd demanding to inspect his documents before questioning their authenticity. Nigeria also announced plans to repatriate at least 130 citizens after the deaths of 2 Nigerians. Mozambique President Daniel Chapo met with President Cyril Ramaphosa and called for calm. South Africa's government condemned the violence but also acknowledged frustrations surrounding illegal immigration. Cabinet said South Africans have the right to protest, but violence linked to demonstrations was unacceptable and law enforcement would act against perpetrators involved. Now, United Nations Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk has called on Tunisia to stop what he described as expanding repression against civil society organizations, journalists, rights defenders, and opposition figures. Volker Turk said restrictions imposed by Tunisian authorities undermine rights protected under Tunisia's constitution and international human rights obligations. His comments followed the temporary suspension of the Tunis branch of international NGO Avocats Sans Frontières, days after similar measures targeted the Tunisian League for Human Rights. Avocats Sans Frontières confirmed receiving a 30-day suspension but did not disclose reasons. The UN Rights Office said Tunisian authorities frequently cite funding and audit irregularities when imposing suspensions. Turk said authorities were increasingly using judicial sanctions to limit freedom of association without sufficient regard for legality, necessity, and proportionality. And the Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi has indicated he may consider remaining in office beyond 2028 if Congolese citizens support the move through a referendum. Speaking during a press conference in Kinshasa, Tshisekedi said he had not requested a third term, but would accept it if the people wanted it, despite the constitution limiting presidents to 2 terms. He also warned that elections scheduled for 2028 may not proceed if conflict in eastern DR Congo continues. Tshisekedi said voting could not be organized without North and South Kivu, where M23 rebels have seized territory, including Goma and Bukavu. He stated the timing of elections would depend on how quickly the conflict is resolved. The president said his priority remained restoring peace through diplomacy before leaving office, while accusing Rwanda of benefiting from DR Congo's mineral wealth and delaying implementation of an agreement signed in Washington in December. And now we end our top stories with a message from the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, talking about press freedom.
Press is the oxygen of a free and open society. It informs public debate and can build trust, underpinning social cohesion, resilience, and security. Despite all this, journalism today has become an insecure and at times dangerous profession. Media workers are being bombed in their cars, abducted from their offices, silenced behind bars, and dismissed from their jobs. Israel's war in Gaza has become a death trap for the media. My office has verified the killing of nearly 300 journalists since October 2023, with many more injured. So far in 2026, Lebanon is the deadliest country for media workers. In Sudan, I met journalists who had faced extreme violence, brutality, and even famine, all while trying to continue their essential work. Even away from the front lines, virtually no country is truly safe for those who speak truth to power, and yet journalists are undeterred, reporting in the harshest conditions, even from hospital beds and wheelchairs. They believe that truth is stronger than bullets and it's worth fighting for, and they're right. But they cannot fight alone. They need our support and urgent protection. Together, let's ensure that those who stand for truth do not stand alone.
This is Africa Good Morning with His Excellency Neil Bradley, the British High Commissioner to Namibia, just about a year since he started his tenure in the country. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good morning, Ashwin.
Good morning. To be here. It's been a year.
It's been a year.
In Namibia.
Yeah, it's gone quickly.
Very quickly. You're looking back on your first year, what has stood out the most for you about the country?
Lots of things. The scale of the country, it's vast.
Yes.
Coming from the UK, where distances are always short, just the scale of the country, its diversity, it's so beautiful, the landscapes. I've had the chance to travel around the country a fair bit, whether visiting Katatura here in Windhoek, whether Rehoboth, heading south, heading to the coast, to Luderitz, through the centre up to the dunes, to Erongo province, the coast, and up as far northeast as Katima Malila for Heroes Day last year.
Wow.
And in that I have seen the diversity of Namibia. So it is physically beautiful. Its people are diverse. I think they strike me as being proud people.
Yes.
But at the same time, they are welcoming and understated.
Yes.
In their character, which I find very endearing, very appealing.
Yes.
The history looms large here.
Yes, indeed.
But at the same time, fast forwarding to today, Namibia has a good story to tell. And in the volatile world in which we live, here it feels stable. I think it sets an example to others for its stability. It is peaceful, it is democratic, it's on a steady growth path economically. And in the world that we're in, steady is good.
Absolutely.
Steady is doing very well.
Yes.
But notwithstanding that, there are also challenges, and I have seen poverty and inequality, unemployment. I'm conscious that it's a very youthful population, so plenty of opportunity.
Without a doubt. Look, I like to talk as frankly as possible. Given your role, it's very easy for you to get a binder for everything. You can get a binder for an event, you can get a binder for a group of people, you can get a binder for a space you haven't been to. But you've chosen to interact intimately with a broad stroke. You seem to really have, gone into these spaces and allowed yourself to get an understanding of how Namibians operate. And truly, Namibians are proud and with every reason to be. And I just really appreciate how balanced your view has been of Namibia and optimistic.